a.m. Eastern Time, another LinkedIn Live, 7 days a week. I'm so glad for everybody who participates and interacts, and more importantly, listens to what I believe is really quality, honest advice from quality, honest people. And with that said, I want to introduce you to an old friend who's been here since the show has really become what it is, Gretchen Skalka, and she always has so much energy, enthusiasm, and really a desire to help others, succeed. One last thing before I turn it over to Gretchen. Today we thought we'd talk about authenticity as a starter. Naturally, wherever the conversation goes, that's where we want to be too. And I invite everybody to start using chat. I see Paul's here already. Paul's just a great guy.
He is.
And I'm hearing that from everybody who talks about Paul. So it's not just me or us. For actually a very young, wise person, he has found people and opportunities to really shine. So thank you, Paul, for participating. LinkedIn user, good afternoon. Fitting you have Gretchen for authenticity. Well, that's so sweet. Dean, good morning, Dean. Dean's here every day.
Yep.
Kelly's the anchor. She probably 3-4 times a week on the show. Good morning, Don, Gretchen, y'all. Good morning. Mike's here again. Hello, back again. Thanks for doing these. They're starting to be very helpful. Well, without your support and direction, this couldn't happen. So everybody's in this together. And with that, before more comments come in, we'll sneak Gretchen in. Gretchen?
Hey, no, I'm glad to be here. When you said that I've been here for a while, I was like, I'm the OG, but I'm the original Gretchen. So yeah. So yeah, no, this is always a good conversation because it's like viewer led. And I love that because, people have a lot of things to say, but also a lot of, concerns and challenges and questions about everything. And don't we all? And I love the fact that this format is a great place for people in a safe space to ask and say whatever that they need to do at that time. And I think that really is part of when we talk about authenticity. That's a big part of it. If you don't feel safe and comfortable to express yourself in the way that you need to, that's best for you and most helpful for you, then you can't be authentic. And that I think is really important because that happens in every environment, from our homes to our offices to everywhere else, where we don't feel that maybe we can be our own true, unique, authentic selves. So I think that's a really important topic that you've created for us today.
Well, I'm finding that one word topics really win over because, in a lot of cases, the word means an action, but it also means a feeling, right? And being authentic, makes you maybe true blue or a straight shooter, but really giving the feeling of authenticity, of reality, of something that's genuine, and I think what most people, it's all about balance and perspective on LinkedIn because it is whatever you say it is or think it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times one doesn't consider the timing involved between what you have to do to really receiving what comes back to you because it's such a big universe. So many people are overwhelmed by so many people and so many communications that it's really the real life meeting Gretchen right now in real time and having the opportunity to reach out in real time and share a concern, a question, a triumph, whatever it is that can help you better understand, better appreciate what's going on. So Gretchen, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. Live shows, this format absolutely gives people the opportunity to do that. So, what you see is what you get, that kind of thing. So there's not, if somebody has a question or a challenge, and I'll go to Paul because he always asks really informed questions, but also has equally informed commentary. And so I think that's really great because when those happen, you're on, you go, you answer the question, you discuss your perspective on it. It's not like you're going back to do the research to carefully craft your response. It's like, boom, here's what it is from my perspective. I don't think you can get more authentic than that, because that's, we all deal with each other in the moment anyway. It's how we deal with the people who are closest to us because they're physically there. One thing I love about the live video format is that it enables us to bring that everywhere, and I think that that really is a very, very important thing. And so, the pandemic and everything that happened there a few years ago was horrible, but if there was one, in my opinion, really good lasting result from it, is that it gave people, everybody, not just people who'd been doing it here and there a little bit, but it really leveled the playing field and gave everybody everywhere the opportunity to interact live with other people on the planet. That's huge. That's
Oh
huge.
yeah, I mean you're so right, Gretchen. And it's kind of interesting because me and Gretchen kind of started the same way, not knowing what we were doing, but knowing we could do something, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And what I love about this show is not questions and answers, but we're all blending the answers together as we're talking. So instead
Mhm.
of someone saying, I got the answer, it's like, I'm happy I've got the question. And the
Mhm.
crowd who can now look at the question for myself, but more importantly, collectively and individually,
Yeah.
to get a better grasp. Because once, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Once the pieces start fitting in,
Yep.
it's easy to identify the next piece, and eventually the puzzle fills itself.
Yeah.
And with this encouragement,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's so important, Gretchen.
I was going to say, you just said something that made me think of something, which is, when people have a question, you can get, I may have an answer. I'm never going to say I have the answer unless it's 2 + 2 is 4. That is the answer universally, no matter who you are. But when it's a subjective question of how you feel about something, how something impacts you, how you need to interpret something in your life, we can all help people arrive at an answer. The salient point there is it the one that works best for you? Can you take action from it? What does it mean for you? And then we can add that context there. So I think that's also really important, so that you can turn on the TV, you can turn on the radio, you can turn on the internet, go on your computer, whatever. You can do you can use the oracle, as I call the phone, to find somebody out there is going to say they have the answer. Unless it's got to come from you to be the answer. It could be an answer that you can then interpret to know if it is the answer for you. But just be wary of that, so that just understand that, when you're having that discussion, you still have to determine for yourself what is relevant and meaningful for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you do it collectively, it's stronger. It's almost like taking a poll of one when it's all about what you think, what you need, what you hope for, versus when you blend with a group, the answer is usually a little bit more distilled. And here's the beauty of it: nothing has to be solved in the moment it's discovered,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can work on it. And by having a daily show, and there's people who are here, honestly, 80% of people on the comment bar are here every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it really becomes a continuation of the day before.
Yeah.
It allows a seed to be planted and thought to be provoked.
Yeah.
And then slowly it comes to you. What were you saying, Gretchen?
I was going to say, you have a comment on the screen right now that I think is actually kind of important. Well,
Okay.
it's not kind of, it's very important to talk about. And I hope that I get your name right. And forgive me if I get it wrong. Saba Reina. I know there's a country called Saba, so I'm going to say Saba instead of maybe Saba. We can't enable a safe environment until we reduce poverty and eradicate the fear of war. I think that's a really important point to call out, because let's talk about micro environments. This
Mhm.
right now, this that we are all involved in here live today right now, is what I would call a micro environment. Creating safe micro environments leads to creating safe macro environments. But without that facilitation of true two-way open dialogue, I don't think you can get to those macro environments that you're talking about when it comes to, huge, huge global socioeconomic issues, poverty, war, all those things that go into that. So I do think that this type of environment, which would be a macro or micro environment, is essentially critical to be able to do that, to facilitate the dialogue that can spark ideas that can lead to potentially paths that can begin to have some toehold into finding solutions for those. And again, those are big issues that have very complex. But I do think that one of the ways you can get there is to, in your own life, whoever it is, it may be your neighbor who doesn't agree with you on certain things. It may be, the person at the store that you go to, or, wherever you live, try to create those micro environments, because when you can do that, you grow that ripple. And
Yeah, that's why I love Gretchen to come on the show, because what she says is also founded on empathy,
yes.
right? And if you can be empathetic to someone, meet them at their point, at their level, at their situation, and be part of it instead of come on up or get strong or do something. Most people are down because they can't do anything more, right? That's why they fell down or decided to sit down. The key is, how do you coach them up? And a lot of times people need a helping hand. And I think the real value of this is giving people voices that have yet to be heard, most times been restricted or minimized.
Mm-hmm.
And by having the expression of just typing something,
Mm-hmm.
like what Saba just typed,
Absolutely.
now created a whole conversation around 40, 50 people that will continue to travel through them.
Yeah.
And that's what the value is. And then when people say, not only do I have a voice that's being heard, but that's being respected,
Yeah.
that's being appreciated, that's being supportive, that motivates somebody to start taking what we hope to show to really symbolize and be is the hour of empower,
Mm-hmm.
right? How does everybody get a little stronger, a little smarter, a little happier
Mm-hmm.
from a show with peers? What's your thoughts, Gretchen? And the comments are just coming. Let me just share. We've got Lillian Howard, who's a everydayer. We've got Jatendra, who I've been seeing for the last 4 or 5 days. It's so great at not only attracting people, retaining people, and then optimizing their opportunity, because you're only a step away from the screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Gretchen will tell you this was not a done deal when we first met,
Right.
But it was an encouraging opportunity to say, hey, let's just do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think Nike had it right when it said just do it. So Andrea's here. Andrea will be a guest host tomorrow.
Yay.
And Kelly will be joining her, actually. So we'll have 3 people tomorrow. Thank you, Andrea. Dean. I don't have the answer nor the question, but while trust or environment won't even be asked. So
Mm-hmm.
true.
But I do think you said something really important, which is sometimes people need, a helping hand. And sometimes the strongest hand can be an open ear or a strong shoulder. They may not need you to do anything. They may just need you to be there and listen to what they have to say and help them, begin to work through their thoughts about what they have to say, because a lot of people have a lot to say, but they may not know how to act on it, what to do with it, how to even process it. What does it mean for them? And again, going back to that feeling of overwhelm, overwhelm can lead to sort of, an emotional, but also a physical paralysis. We just don't know what to do. There's so much going on. There's so much to be done. And the exact kind of challenges that Saba is mentioning that are global challenges, poverty and war, those are huge and hugely complex issues. And a lot of people will just be like, it's so big, I don't even know where to start. And that's okay. Because what you have to do is you have to start with us, right? And it sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. You have to start with yourself and begin to, one, micro environments. Create a safe space for yourself to say, what I'm feeling is legit. It's okay for me to feel. I don't have to repress that or push it down or say it's not happening. It's legit. I can feel that. And now widen that micro environment just a little bit. Find somebody to talk to about it. And then enough and more and more and more, right? Until it's more than enough for you. And now you can begin to bring all that bigness that you can't get your hands around down And now we have something that we can work toward, whether it's something in our own community. Because again, the more you talk to other people about the things that are challenging you, one, that you find that you have more in common with people, and that, they may have the same challenges or questions or concerns, but opportunity also is found there. And you might find that there are things happening that you can be a part of that could begin to, give you some kind of effective strategy or effective action so that you are now part of that solution, that bigger solution that you want to work toward.
Yeah, and I think part of the empowerment is actually empowering yourself.
Yeah.
There's a point where you receive the information. It's another point to take action. And I think the most important thing about authenticity is you have to be first authentic to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
You got to know what you want. You got to know who you want to be, or just a guess, or it'll change. So that's the beauty of
Oh,
thinking of
yeah.
something in the
Oh,
future.
yeah.
It will never end up like you thought, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the key word is: start.
Yeah.
And I think by all these shows and all these wonderful people, the common thread is redirection, right? Redirect thought, redirect relationships, and redirect actions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take inventory on what are my thoughts and where are they leading me,
Mm-hmm.
who are the people I'm with and where are they going, and do I want to go there? And what do I need to do today to start taking a step? And I think to Gretchen's point, it's this easy steps, because if you tell somebody, here's a book, read it by next week, they'll say there's no way. But if you say, can you read a page a night, for 6 months? And they would say, sure, I've got a minute to read a page, and you'll have read the book. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really taking time away from things that aren't serving you, eliminating associations that aren't supporting you, and giving you that opportunity to recombine. Andrea's here. Andrea's pretty prodigious on the keyboard today. I agree with. We have to start within and share. And the sharing is so important. One point I want to layer onto what Gretchen said is too many people look at things as winning or losing at the time they're doing it instead of investing. And, to help somebody, you help yourself. So it's not like I gave and they got. It's like we both got something. We created something. We made something better together. That's practice.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it's payment.
But you also have, when you go back to winning and losing. So, some people are, their fear of losing is greater than their desire to win.
Mm-hmm.
And that will absolutely stop you in your tracks every time. So you have to get really clear on that, and understanding that failure is part of winning. So you're going to be, it's going to happen. I mean, I think the Colonel Sanders story, everybody knows Kentucky Fried Chicken. I think it's in every country in the world. But, the dude was already retired. I think he was in his mid 60s, and he realized he didn't have enough money to live on for the rest of his life. His retirement was not what he thought it would be. And he had this chicken frying recipe or whatever he had. And he literally went around the country selling this thing, and nobody bought it. Like 1,000 people or something. Restaurants said, no, we don't want this thing. One said yes. Now we know, everybody knows who he is. Everybody, I mean, that's a real thing. That secret recipe, that's how he did it. Before I left corporate, I worked for a company that was 10,000 plus people. It's a multinational corporation. It's huge. And it started with a guy selling tires out of the trunk of his car at flea markets in South Florida. You just don't know. Failure is going to be part of every winning story, every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all get the highlight reel, right? We all see the highlight reels. They're called social media. That's everybody's highlight reels. Every now and then you'll get the vulnerable share when somebody will tell you something, and I certainly do the same thing. But by and large, you get the highlight reel. As long as you know that going in, that's okay. All the things that didn't happen, all the videos that were scrapped or we haven't cut them up yet because we couldn't get the right shot and those kind of things, that's really important to understand how long it took to do something. But we sort of see everything in this one facade. So we think it was kind of an immediate thing. They turned on the camera and they produced this great video. whatever it is, like that's one of the things that is also a challenge for people is that immediacy, that feeling of immediacy. I need to have it now. So we take, those two ingredients, which can be a powerful combination. If your fear of losing is bigger than your desire to win, that's one thing. And then you attach that to, well, I have a timeline in mind of when I need to win by, when I need to get success by. That's two. So take that pressure off yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about when it's going to happen, because when you do that, you focus on the thing you love to do anyway. You love to do it. It doesn't matter when it's going to happen. The other people are going to be like, wow, you're really good at that. That will happen if you just continue to do it. That's the thing is, Oprah is a great story. She did her thing for years and years and years, local news, this, that, and the other. She worked and worked and worked. But it wasn't until somebody said, she has natural charisma. I just want to watch her talk. And they gave her a wider platform so more people could see her. And more people could go, wow, she's so inspiring. Like, I love listening to her. And of course, everybody, she's a global household name now, but it didn't start out that way for her. She had her own challenges and her own story that helped make her who she is. And so does every single person in this chat. And so does every single person who can watch this on the replay or is just out there in general. But it's a matter of taking that pressure of immediacy off of us and realizing that what we see, and again, I call it the oracle, what you see on your social channels, by and large, it's going to be everybody's highlight reel. Just know that going into it. I mean, in a world of AI and filters and everything else, we know the deal. Like, we know the landscape, And so knowing that, really, there are two schools of thought. One, it's going to up the tendency to feel competitive about it. They're doing all this stuff, I've got to do it too. Or let it take the pressure completely off. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Everybody's going to post their best stuff. I'm just going to do my thing. Do your thing. Authenticity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would do it anyway. If you would do it anyway, just do it. Everything will fall into place. Now, when that happens, that's not something that, I can say, because who can know that for you? But if you do know that it will happen, that's a great motivator, because you're doing it anyway. So just keep doing it.
Yeah, and every day is a day. Every day has its 24 hours. And hopefully you're in every day. So it's, what do you want to do with it? I believe if you can recharacterize it as an adventure, as a mystery, if you ever read a mystery book or what, you're anticipating, how is it going to end? Who is the person, right? In an adventure, what's behind the mountain there? What's ahead of me? And if you do it with friends and trusted associates like we have here, it's even easier. And in some ways, if you're with a great group of people having fun, you want it to extend the time. How many times did you say, boy, I wish we could have spent 3 more days here, but we got to fly back today?
Do you know what? I have to tell you, because I know she's in the audience, but that was the exact thing that happened Saturday morning on Melissa Houston's coffee chat. Like, I can't start when she starts because I have a regular Saturday appointment, but I get in about halfway through, and it was just such a good chat that we all kind of wanted to stay and hang out and talk. And that's, same thing like here. I've seen that happen on your show. I see it happen everywhere. That's a great thing. And sometimes we can't because life gets in the way and we have, commitments and whatnot. But when you want to do that, when you find somebody that you click with, or something that you click with, and you're like, God, I could just talk to this person forever. I could just do this forever. There's something there to pay very, very close attention to, and really get into that, because it's feeding you. It is giving you energy and life. And that is something you want to pay really close attention to. Those are people and circumstances that you want to create more opportunities to bring into your life. Absolutely. 100%.
So true. And it proves it, because me and you wouldn't have had all these wonderful conversations if we didn't have the show to have them on, right? This motivates both of us, like I say, not only to co-host, but to co-coach each other, because we're bouncing things back and forth. Jatendra has a great comment. Never regret a day in your life. Good days bring you happiness, and bad days bring you experience. You're so right. I mean, You either learn
Yes.
or you earn. You never lose unless you quit. And failing
Yep.
forward is so important. Lillian is here. Lillian's just great. This speaks volumes. Thanks for saying that, because everybody contributes. And now what Jitendra just did is redirect the conversation to his thought, elicit a response from Lillian, right?
Yep.
Melissa's here. I'm going to share that she's here. She's a wonderful lady, very interesting, and eclectic in a lot of ways, and somebody that would really make your life better for her being in it. The same thing with Lillian. Cynthia's here. Cynthia's a wonderful lady. Saba, we have to get to know each other. I'll reach out to have a call, because it seems like a lot of people know you, and whoever knows you that I know, I'd like to know too. Paul is here. Well, Melissa's here. Paul says, my mentor always says, who loses if you don't win? Attach your goals and dreams to the people closest to you and watch the excuses and fears fade away. And then, when you're with people, you're not competing with them, and they're not competing with you. And Gretchen's point, the only competition you really have is yourself. That's what should be. And you know what?
Yeah.
When you say, I don't have enough time, give yourself double the time then. If you went to the bank and said, I need to borrow money, right? And they say, what are you going to use it for and how are you going to pay it back? Take a loan out on yourself, right? Say, I'm going to give myself an extra week on things. I'm not going to get affected. We were just talking before the thing about Gretchen's experience with a person on the phone, and how one views it and responds to it. And the better you are, for the people around you. And then they see that, right?
Yep.
And it spreads. We've got Melissa, every winning season has losses in the mix. That's part of the game. If you never lost, you can never win. Right? You ever play a game that you can't lose at? It gets so boring. I used to play pinball when I was a kid, and once you get all the free games and you keep getting free games, there's no challenge, right?
Yeah.
You always want what you kind of can't have in a way. Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, I'm reading Paul's comment about, redefining what the word competition means to him, and Melissa's comment about, winning seasons. And, if you talk to the greatest athletes out there, they'll all tell you that they only compete against themselves in their last best performance. Now, we'll watch, I played sports a little bit, but, game tape and things like that, very important. But in the final analysis, the competition is internal. They're competing against their last best, performance, and pushing themselves to the brink of what they can do. And so when you're talking about competition, I see a lot of destructive competitive behavior actually on platforms. And it's a challenge to me. And I kind of, I want to like wrap everybody in a big old digital hug and say, oh, honey, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be in competition with other people. There are, like, what I do, there are millions of people who do what I do. I do not look at any of them as competition, because nobody does it the way I do. Nobody does it the way they do. Well, I'm not a financial coach like Paul, but Melissa, like, nobody does it the way that I do, or the way that she does, or the way that he does, or anything. So they're not my competition. We're not. And again, there are 8+ billion people in the world. You don't have to compete against anybody except yourself if you're where you want to be. Now, the problem with that is competition gets so ingrained in people for one main reason, and that is because comparison.
Mm-hmm.
We have a proclivity. We are sort of brought up in a lot of cultures to be in competition. And so that's okay, but it's by comparison, and that's not okay. So, we don't all start at the same place in life. So that immediately skews what really is a fair comparison. Nobody can compare you to you. You only compare against yourself, which means you only really need to compete with yourself. So the comparison game is a trap that a lot of people fall into, and the deeper they are into it, the higher their negative competition, like inflection goes. And that's something to keep in mind, and because you see it, people have tells. They have, they sort of telegraph how they're feeling about things on any given day. And somebody who is feeling very insecure, that's when their negative competition quotient is super high, which also means that they're really unfairly comparing themselves and where they are in life with other people. That's important to remember because it never has to be that way. That authenticity of understanding, yes, Paul Roosevelt was right. Comparison is absolutely the thief of joy. You know, that is very important to remember, because when we talk about being authentic, the very first, like, sort of, pothole in the road to being authentic is when you begin to compare yourself to other people, and then you begin to tweak and modify your authenticity to fit a mold that you weren't poured into, and you don't need to fit into that one.
Yeah,
But that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people. It's hard. Yeah.
no, absolutely. And, everything is about definition, right? And if you look at competition, how do you have competition when you haven't even figured out the game or how you can play it? Right. And then when you also look at numbers, they have to be in relationship to the true numbers. The
Yeah.
numbers that come out on LinkedIn is there's 900 million people registered on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Only 18% of them take any action during the week, which is read, comment.
Yep.
Only 2 to 3% of them create and post.
Yep.
And when you stretch it to newsletters, only 36,000 newsletters are on LinkedIn. And then if you take that down a notch to LinkedIn Lives, and I'm here every day. I'm on LinkedIn every day for 3 years. I would know if there was a lot going on that I didn't know about. I mean, somebody would tell me if it was important, or somebody would
Ah,
reach
so
out
funny.
to me, right? I'd say maybe there's 1,000 of us, and then
Yeah.
who does it consistently? Who does it well? Who
Yeah.
does it with uh, empathy, with inclusion, with valuing diversity? One thing is we have a passport to go anywhere with our message because it clears customs. If it's about respect, if it's about kindness, if it's about love, there's no boundaries, there's no cultures, there's no beliefs that won't accept and embrace quality respect for each other. And you know what I learned by talking to people for extended period of time, because people know I can talk for an hour on an initial call,
Mhm.
is once you get beyond the superficial, it gets deeper and richer. And what you realize is everybody's a person,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
what you need to meet people as a person. What
I
you're
was
saying,
I was just gonna say something that I thought was funny, but I don't think it's really funny. I was gonna say, yes, once you get past all this beauty and glamour, there's a flawed human being under here, you know, and that's fine, because we all have to figure it out for ourselves, and we create the life that we ultimately want, but we have to do that one step at a time. Like, we just can't, it doesn't just happen automatically. You have to create it, but you have to know where you're going, know what you want to do. Yes, absolutely, Andrea. That was a great comment. I think that it's so important to know that where you're, the human need to become significant, to be better, richer, wiser, et cetera. We're programmed like this. It's so true. And the thing is like, I mean, it's marketing, in a lot of ways, right? So the ideal that's presented to you by, cosmetics companies or the apparel industry or whoever it is, the car that you need to drive, all those things, that we think is like, that's the thing, that's the holy grail of, accomplishment and success. And that's what it looks like. Does it really for you? And again, if you're not sure, that's widen that little micro environment to one other person. Again, this is something that matters to you. So understand how you feel about it. And if you're not sure, having somebody to talk to that is open and it's a safe spot, you can say what you need to, and that person, right? There's somebody that you trust, and they'll give it to you. They'll give you the straight shot. They'll let you know really what their thoughts are on it. Not how you should feel about it, but what their thoughts are on what you've said. Now you have some feedback that you can begin to process. And you can, that's it, some data, right? You can kind of work through that and think, okay, that's a different perspective. How do I feel about that? And then you go and you go and you go, because again, at the end of the day, what do those things signify to you? I'll take it to like what I do in the world of work, right? If you are going for, and it was kind of the subject of a post I wrote today, because that was a real DM that I got from a client who, was presenting with, this is it, I'm quitting, if I don't get that promotion. And it's like, oh, I've tried everything. And I was like, okay, let's dial that one back and let's actually read this word for word on this call when we finally got on a Zoom. Have you tried everything? Are you sure? And again, the point of that is, no, check your perspective. Maybe it needs a slight reframe. Maybe it needs a big one. You don't know. But sometimes we tell ourselves things that become our narratives that actually aren't true. Just because you believe it doesn't mean it's true. So we want to check that mindset and understand where some of those thoughts are coming from. I need a certain job, a certain title, a certain salary, a certain house, certain car, certain clothes, certain body weight, whatever, certain eye color, hair color, to be happy. And I can tell you right now, I don't know. I really only know me and a handful of other people in this world, right? That's about all of us do. But I know for everybody, that's not where happiness is. And if it's going to take something, if you'll be happy when, you'll never be happy. Be happy now. It doesn't matter if you're broke, fat, jobless. It doesn't matter. You can be happy right now. And then everything else, tick, 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 begins to fall into place. But it's just a matter of understanding it. And again, this is hard, but giving yourself permission to go into that and say, you know what, it's not all perfect according to this and that magazine, that news story, and my neighbor and blah, blah, blah. But is it for you?
Well, and here's what I believe, and to follow up on what you said, which I think is very valuable, is you're better off dealing with the future in the future and enjoying the present while you're in the present.
Yeah.
And trust yourself that when the time comes, the present will be where you are today and you'll be capable. The other thing is, just like on Wheel of Fortune, it's important to buy some vowels before you guess the puzzle or assume something. So by getting a group that you can share things and get a consensus, just saying, hey, I'm up in the air about this. Has anybody got anything to say? Maybe an experience, maybe some advice. And it does, and I think the other thing people have to appreciate is because someone gives you advice doesn't mean you have to take it, right? It just means you can listen to it, maybe take a piece of it, or maybe it confirms something where you're not looking for someone to say, no, you're wrong, here's what to do. It's like, I believe what you're doing is terrific and it's right, and that reinforces it. So it's who you reach out to, how you reach out to them, how you receive what they give you, and that's why being the best you can helps you everywhere in every way it can. Because when you show up and someone says, boy, that person's exciting, they're enthusiastic, they're happy, they're positive, that's sure a lot better than some of these, anchors that I got around me, and I think that's why people get attracted to real shows, because their real life isn't as exciting, isn't as empowering, right? And now you can build a family or even be adopted by a family, right? We've got 30, 40 regulars here. Anybody coming in and shows themselves to be honorable, to be trustworthy, to be able to keep confidence, right? And it's afterwards what comes out of these shows, because then people pair off. Go ahead, Gretchen.
I'm reading Cynthia's comment right now, and I was like, girl, I feel you, because she's said, my husband got me a Cosmo magazine for Christmas in a Christmas stocking. Now I'm 56. I laughed all the way through because of the things it recommended and expected of 20-something women. Oh, just wait until they're my age. And I'm 53. And so I know exactly what that's like. The things that, and again, the things that you value in your 20s, whether it's career, physicality, compensation, any of those things will be different at every stage of your life. And that's okay. That should be expected, because there are different phases of life for a reason. growth phases. We're meant to go through things to learn and then recalibrate and recalibrate and recast and grow and learn and evolve, right? All through our lives. And so this is really important. Yes, I'm right there with you, Cynthia. What really, stopped me in my tracks and mattered to me and really gave me pause in my 20s, and it was supposed to, because that's when it happens. Now I'm just like, water off a duck's back, no biggie. Been there, done that, right? So, but again, you have to go through those things. That's why experience is the best teacher. It really is, because you can't fake that. You've gone through it. Melissa, I know she's in the audience. She had a comment, and it's so good in terms of, you know, and she's talking about, if you're going to hire somebody, what about the experience? Would you hire a boxing coach who'd never taken a punch? And that's a Melissa Houston thing. But I think it's really important to remind that, because for everybody, the experience that you've had, good, bad, or in between, has helped give you that. I mean, and it sounds weird, especially, I know, if nobody knows my story, it's, not like way easy, but we've gone through like incurable disease and house blowing up and husband not waking up after surgery and things like that. So a lot of things, but every experience, there is a gift in there if you take it with you and you learn from it, and you can begin to say, based on my experience, I now know this. That wisdom will never leave you. It will never leave you, and it will inform decisions that you make that will become better and better and better. Again, those experiences, going back to what Saba was saying, those are micro environments for you. Those are little classrooms, learning experiences that you take with you forever. That's why as we get older, we have the benefit of all of that collective wisdom. Nobody can take that from you. And it is a gift that you can give other people. That's why, in some cultures, like, Asian culture, like they revere the elderly. We don't do as much of that here. I wish that we did, because there's so much value there. There's so much life wisdom that, and we all want it. We just, sometimes don't know how to get it. I'll just put it that way. Where to go for it.
Well, that's a good point, because I think when you look at defining authenticity, authenticity changes when you change, right? When you change yourself, your new authenticity should reflect your new self, right? Whatever that is.
But
Go ahead.
I think that the authenticity is sort of this current, this thread that goes through everything you do, because at your core, who you are, you're what again, your values, everybody's got their core values, things that we always are, integrity, trust, things like that. But some things that we value at different stages of our lives, they can, should, and are supposed to change as we become more of what we are meant to become in this life. And so will the people around you and the environments and everything else. And so that authenticity will grow, and your perspective may change. And so what you feel, again, what was valuable to you because it mattered to you at one phase in your life may have less importance. It's still there, but it doesn't have like the immediate and important now box, right? Where it once was. And I think that's really important. The Benjamin Button example, which is a really good one, where you start, like as a baby, but you have all the knowledge. And then and you think about what that is, but it's set up the other way. It's set up that we have no knowledge and we have to learn everything. And for me, the best part about that, I always think of it like a firework, right? So we go through our lives like a firework, and it's constantly, or a sparkler, right? But it's giving off all this stuff. And people can catch that if you're sharing it with them. So you pass the sparkler around, you pass the firework, boom, big explosion. All of that knowledge that you have can radiate out. And you can use your own metaphor. I mean, the ripple is the best one, where you just, I learned this today. Boom, ripple in the pond. Boom, 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 boom. People can get it. And then they get it. And then they share it. And again, pay it forward, all those things. There are reasons that these phrases exist, because these types of things move the world. They move us forward collectively as a human body. That's important. That to me is like the core of authenticity.
Yeah, and I do believe that if you, it's easier to look back than it is to look forward, right? And the older you get, the more you can kind of string it together, because life's events are like pearls. And once you can string those pearls together to really build something wonderful.
Mhm.
And the other thing, as you get older, you get more courageous, because there's never enough time for everything bad that you thought could happen to you to ever happen now. And, and you're getting closer, let's say, to the end. So the things that used to bother you, just like fashion, right, or style. When you're in your 20s, everything was about how do you look. Now it's about how do you feel? Like, what's the most comfortable thing you could put on today? What's the most comfortable meal you could eat? Where when you were 20, you're eating cheeseburgers at 3 in the morning, and things like that. So you have to value every part of your life for the step that it gave you to take the next step. And that's where true evolution in oneself comes in, is through the authentic self, to say, whatever I am, I'm true.
Yeah, and I think that there's a really important part about what you just said, which is none of this is to devalue who we were in our preteens, teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, like all that. None of that, because again, we don't become what we're meant to become without going through those things. That's why they're important. But it's also important to, when you're in those things, and they can be terribly challenging times. There's no amount of money in the world that would make me go back to my 20s. You know, there's just not, because as a woman in professional work, you're just kind of like, you're really not, at least my experience was, you're really not taken seriously. Even though I won like all my writing awards in my 20s, like, no, you're not. But you need to experience those things, because they will test what you think is important to you. And you either know that they are, or you know that you need to be stronger to value what's really important to you. But they are great lessons. We do, and again, they can be really hard, very, very, very difficult lessons. And some people, it's impossible to transcend those. That's why they're so important. And we have to respect every single phase of our lives, because not everybody gets through those, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
that's very important. I mean, my niece was one of those. She could not surmount what she was facing. That part of her life was not something that she was able to handle. So again, when I say we have to respect all of those, I laugh when I think of, my teens and my 20s, some of the clothes that I was like, and again, I would, I wore things that were like so uncomfortable, my shoes, those heels. I mean, I wanted to wear them. I thought they looked good on me. And I guess at the time they did, they were fashionable. But again, I laugh at that now. I'm not laughing at me going through that and thinking they were important, because at the Gretchen then, they were incredibly important for me and the growth that I needed to have. I can't be this Gretchen here at 53 without having been that one. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the same for everybody. Every single person, Lillian, Cynthia, Paul, all of them. You don't get to be this great, wonderful thing that you are now without having been the great, wonderful thing that you were then, in the process of becoming what you are now. And what I am now is, a little part of what I will be 5, 10, 15, whatever years from now, because I'm still becoming. And that's really important to understand that, again, going back to failure, you know, I yeah, I failed every diet I've ever tried. Okay, I'll try some more, one's gonna work, you know, but again, that's just a benign example, but it's really important, because you can't look at any of the things where you have this idea of what success means for you, but you attach it to a timeline. Lose 10 pounds in 30 days, da 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 da. No, I'm just gonna focus on, still, not restricting myself, living my life, because life is meant to be enjoyed, and then figuring out what works to get me where I want to go. I will get there one day. I just need to be sure I'm doing it in a way that does not ebb and chip away at who I am, my authentic self. That is really important. And it's also really hard.
Well, what's really important is becoming important to someone, to something, being part of a movement, a message. I think that's what makes people want to wake up every day. And, every day, no one knows what it's going to be, and
Yeah.
everybody gets surprised, good and bad, all through the day, and then decides to add commentary to it, good or bad, by the end of the day, and then decides to continue it into the next day.
Yep.
Is that the book you want to read? And I always look at it is the key to authenticity is reinvention. And to your point, you can't be in your 20s and be in your 50s. You
Yeah.
can't be in the first grade and be in the fifth grade, right? At a certain point, you have to move on. Whenever it's time to move on. Some
Yeah.
people can maintain their 20s into their 80s and somehow work it out where they can still wear all the uncomfortable clothes, be everything, whatever it is. But you're the judge at the end of the day. And if you're having fun, if you're happy, keep doing it.
Yes. Yes.
Because one other thing, no matter what you achieve, when you achieve it, the next day you have to earn it again. You can't take the past with you. The past is over. You can learn from it. You can grow from it. And I tell everybody, if it wasn't for everything that happened, you wouldn't be exactly where you are today. And you got to take it as a whole, right?
Absolutely.
Like a
Yep.
batting average. To say, I hit 333, which will get me 20 million a year at any major league club, but it means I miss 67% of the time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but relatively speaking, I'm important because no one could have done better, And I think that's one last thing, and I'll turn on to Gretchen for her viewpoint, is knowing you did the best you could with the best intentions you had is worth more than the result, because those two things will drive the next action tomorrow, which might get you a different result. But if you don't have a strong foundation, if you don't have a direction, if you don't have a support group, you're going into a fight with one arm behind your back,
mhm.
And then when it doesn't work out, you can at least blame the one arm behind your back versus you, right? Because you're going after a headwind instead of a tailwind.
Mhm.
Real quick, Gabe Leal is here. I've never seen his name, and I love seeing brand new names and brand new people every day.
He's so funny. The
Uh,
members only jacket. Oh my gosh.
I probably have one of those too. They were cool at the time, or until everybody else had one. I still like wearing my members only jacket, even though I probably still the only member. Fashion is so subjective.
I
Oh, well, it's so cool that trends and fashion take you where you probably would have never gone, Gretchen.
I will also say this, just like everything else, there's a season for all those trends, and they're cyclical. My dad actually taught me a really good lesson without ever even trying to. In his closet, he had this box, this little shoe box, but it was full of ties. And actually, he had two of them now that I remember. He had one for fat ties, one for skinny ties. And I remember thinking when I was a teenager, I'm like, this is stupid. Why do you have these in here? And some of them I was like, this is ridiculous. It was like that wide. Who would wear that? And of course, when I was in high school, it was kind of fashionable for girls to dress as boys. So I actually went to I went to 3 proms, and I went to one dressed as in a tuxedo. And but he did that, and he said, "Oh yeah, they'll come back in style anyway. So I'm just going to keep them." I never forgot that, because that's absolutely true. And I had to chuckle a few years ago when bell-bottom pants came back in style, and I have a picture of me in summer camp wearing bell-bottom patchwork jean pants that my mom made for me, standing next to a horse, crying because I didn't want my picture taken. I was very little. I just didn't want them in those pants, and then they were fashionable again. So again, we laugh at those things, but they're important because at some point they're going to come back around. And that lesson that you learn and that memory that you have and that kind of comfortable feeling that you have about it will come back. And all that learning will flood to the fore of your brain. And you'll realize how amazing you are. All the stuff you've learned, all the stuff because you went through that, because you lived through it.
Well, isn't that
That's
so
huge.
important, is to identify and celebrate opportunities and moments you've already had, so it's like going to what it used to be like Blockbuster, right? You get a VHS tape, and it was whatever you wanted to watch that day, and you can go back into your history. And when you think about standing next to the horse with those jeans, you also start to remember the music you used to listen to,
I
when
still listen to that music.
and I'm just saying, it brings back these memories. When you close your eyes and say, what was the family occasion that was the happiest? What Christmas, what birthday, what reunion, whatever. And
Mhm.
you could relive that.
Mhm.
That takes the thoughts of, how am I going to make money tomorrow? Or,
Yep.
how am I going to be okay tomorrow? How am I going to do this? It's almost like you want to peek into the future before it's time.
But be really careful with that, because again, the forward and the reverse, brain movement, does two things. When things happen that we don't expect, changes, whatever, a decision's made, news happens, the human brain immediately will go to the bad scenario that could happen, because it's going to the past,
Hmm.
because it's a comfortable thing, it's a familiar thing. It may not be a positive thing or a good thing, but we can remember that, so our brain can kind of fit into the grooves there, instead of the open, infinite possibility of the unknown future, which can seem dangerous to us. But wow, that's where all the possibility is. It is absolutely 100% human nature to do the other. Knowing that, you can begin to do some things, so that when things happen that you don't like, one of the things, and I learned this, is not something that I just know how to do. I learned it, but with a training that I went through. It's a mental fitness technique, and it's basically rub two fingers together. Just try to feel the ridges on the fingers. Really concentrate on it. It's very difficult to be panicked, nervous, anxious when you're just trying to feel the ridges on your fingers. 3 seconds can change your mindset. It can change your frame of mind, take you out of that panic mode, right? If you are in that panic mode, or you're just not sure what's going to happen, and you feel yourself getting anxious, in less than a minute, you can slow your heart rate down. Just remember 12. 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out. Do it 3 times, right? 12 3 times. And in 45 seconds, you can have calmed yourself and refocused your mindset. And now we can move forward in a different direction, a non-panic direction. Little things like that. You learn those over time with experience. And then you share them, so that somebody else hopefully might be able to put that in their mental bank and go to that in a time of stress and go, no, I know a little thing, a little trick that I can do to help calm myself down and make a better decision right now.
Yeah, and sometimes,
That's yeah.
just like professional or athletic teams, they have timeouts, right? Every
Yeah.
team gets like 3 timeouts a half, and then they have halftime to go into the locker room. And sometimes, I found I'm working too hard at something, thinking too long, and not getting it. And when I leave, take a walk, do something to get me out of, when I come back, I figure it out, right? People
Mhm.
are trying to force things, and what makes you unauthentic, right? When you're doing things faster than you should, when everybody says, slow down, you're going too fast, or watch the corner there,
Mhm.
and sometimes you just want to get beyond nature, right? You want to do things that are unnatural and expect things for other people to do that aren't natural, because you're in a hurry. They should not be in a hurry. You ever see someone who's always late, but when they want to go, everybody needs to be there right now? It's almost like someone says, yeah, come on, we're going to leave now. And I said, when you touch the doorknob, let me know. Because in
Yeah.
most cases, it's 8 more minutes and I'm standing around.
Right?
But that's the beauty of everything we're talking about. If you can
Yeah.
look at life as a comedy, as a romance, and not a horror show, and not a mystery or a crime drama, you know, what you watch, what you listen to has a deep, profound
Mhm.
impact on you. Who you're around, their conversations. Even if you're in a store and you don't know anybody and someone's saying something, and good or bad, it's going to affect you, right? If someone says, I just saved somebody yesterday, and you say, wow, that's great, or hey, I just did something really bad to somebody. I mean, whatever it is, it's your environment that you choose to be in, and then how you accept or reject what doesn't align with your authenticity. Gretchen?
No, I think that's really important to also, have a sort of qualifying filter for yourself, so that you're not automatically digesting and sort of letting everything that's happening and being said around you permeate you. That you've got a filter, a barrier that you're able to say, does that really affect me right now? Do I need to let that affect me right now? You know, what role does this person, this event, the situation have in my life? You're in control of that. You don't have to be at the whim of everything that's happening around you. Now, again, that is a learned practice thing that happens over time. And it's not easy because you always have to be reminded, because the world's still happening and things are happening and you can't control anything out there, just what's in here. And that's really tough, but you can do it. And just knowing that you can, that there are strategies and techniques that you can do to begin that practice and add that inner peace, that inner calm to your life, that helps you increase your self-command and make better decisions and have better outcomes and choose the better whatever it is that's going to serve you better. That's just that to me is like all opportunity right there.
Yeah, I think that's
Love it.
so profound because if you look at life as a teacher, right, and the lessons you learned, and then whatever you had to go through to get that lesson, when later in life you're confronted with something and say, because of what I went through and what I learned, here's how I'm now responding to things, where in the past, this is how I used to. If something like this would have happened 20 years ago, this is exactly what I would have done, and it's completely different than
Yes.
what I'm doing today. So you think that lesson, because
Yeah.
all the future dividends that you can apply that to, because your
Yeah.
point, some of it's avoidance. It's like, I don't want to go through
Well,
that again. I
yeah.
mean, if this is going to come up, we're going to make this quick work, right?
But again, if you're doing something different that's working for you, you did learn from it. If you're not, you didn't learn
Mhm.
from it. And so you're going to repeat those patterns and you're going to repeat that lesson until you do learn from it. That's an unfortunate byproduct of life, but that does happen, where if somebody is in a repetitive cycle of bad things happening or what is perceived to be bad for them, there's some difference, there's some learning that hasn't happened that needs to fundamentally happen to shift a behavior or a thought pattern to create new actions. So, and again, it's learned, it's practiced over time. So I think that's, it's just really important to know that, but also to know that, like you said, every day is an opportunity to, continue to create that environment, mini or micro or macro that you want. And you do have that power. And, it's not easy, but you can
Well, and
do
I
it.
think familiar is always attractive, even though it may not
Yeah.
be the best route. You're used to it, you know how it works, you know how to work with it. And,
Yeah.
I always believe whatever you did yesterday, you can always do it tomorrow. So by taking the day in the middle and doing something different, trying something,
Mhm.
challenging yourself to really see, is it as bad as you thought it was? Sometimes
Right.
you got to open up the drapes and say, it is sunny outside. I would have never known if I didn't look,
Right.
and I think if you look at every day as a gift, I when I wake up in the morning, I say I got another ticket on the roller coaster of life. That alone is something that a lot of people who went to sleep last night can't say, and a lot of people wake up today may not, go to sleep tonight. So you have to put that in perspective is, hey, there's so many people, there's so many things I already have. I tell my
Mhm.
kids, if you
Mhm.
never did anything more than what you've already done, I'm so proud of you. And just for that, if people would be happy with what is and who is at their
Yeah.
level, that would encourage
Mhm.
people to say, I'm not going to be living for somebody's dreams that aren't mine. I'm not going to build to an expectation that's unrealistic. Gretchen?
Right, but the other thing too is that's not to say, we're just putting on a happy face when things aren't happy. It's understanding how to break those things apart, the events, how we're perceiving them, all those things. I mean, this is a processor, right? So how are we processing all those things that are happening? And what are we doing? How, what actions are we taking? What mindset do we have? What thoughts are we having about it? That's really important to basically, begin to, on an instant level, but sort of decode what's happening before you decide how it impacts you. And that can be really, really tough, but it's absolutely achievable. But it is another practice behavior, but it's so important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
I know we've gone over, but it is so
no,
important. So, yeah.
when you go over, you're adding more value, not less. And, if you savor your life, you ever have a quality meal and someone wolfed it down in like 30 seconds? You wonder, did anything touch their tongue? You know? And somebody are cutting pieces like in microscopic pieces and making an hour out of it, but they're really enjoying it. And so many people have to stop and smell the roses, stop and say, what do I have here that I can enjoy right now? Why is it always the future that I have to live in, the things I have yet to accomplish? What you should do is
Yeah.
be happy and happier. And to Gretchen's point, base it on how you feel, because your heart is your best guide, not your brain a lot of times, right? And it'll tell you when you're comfortable, when you're uncomfortable, when you're hungry, when you're not. And if you follow yourself, you're with yourself. And I think that's the foundation to being authentic, right? And also, we talk about struggle and hard work. Once you've set yourself up in a good position, once you reprioritize, reorganize your thoughts, actions, and relationships, you don't have to go through that heavy lifting every day, right? Hopefully you built a foundation. Now you can build from it. And now you can enjoy the benefits of doing things in a much more nourishing way for you and the people around you. I mean, everybody's feeding themselves and hopefully has enough to help feed others and be fed by others. And that way, everybody's value gets increased by the sheer ability of what they do best. And on shows like this, you can really niche whatever it is you love the most and communicate with the people who share that with you. And it's like-minded alignment that builds trust, right? If everybody's where everybody is and believes kind of in the goodness of mankind, that the future will work out, that we're resourceful and collectively, when the time comes, we'll step up to the plate. That's hopeful. In the meantime, like Gretchen says, all you can control is yourself. And if you do a great job of it, at minimum, you save somebody else from having to do it for you, right? So now they can focus on themselves and not have to worry about you and help others. So with that, final thoughts. We're a little bit over, but I think it was all worth it. I want to thank everybody for showing up. When you take an hour out of 40, 50 people's day, right? That's 48 hours. That's 2 days worth of time that would have been spent somewhere else. But hopefully the time spent here can now be applied to future whatever initiatives. But also, it's nice to know you can come here anytime, feel this way, talk with people like yourself, be heard, be seen. And, if I can do it and Gretchen can do it, believe me, everybody can do it, because you all have greatness within you. And it just takes a little bit to bring it out. Gretchen?
No, I echo everything you just said. Yeah, it's always a good conversation. So I love your audience. They're so good.
Well, you're a big part of it, Gretchen. You're one of the founders for kicking this thing off. And I think it's because of our initial perspectives and attitudes being newbies that maybe we're a little more humble and modest, that some of these people have had 10 years on the stage and millions of followers and forgot how to be humble and modest and supportive. So maybe we're the new crop. Or what kind of crop? Old crop too. So with that, thank you, everybody. Rest up, come back in 23 hours. We'll have Andrea and Kelly here tomorrow. Got one last comment that supports me is the bestest, and so is Gretchen. Thank you so much. Giving a compliment compliments the complimenter, right? Because it's like they did something special for someone that they felt and wanted to be recognized. And that's why giving is getting, just in the giving part, and anything else is gravy. So with that final thought, thank you so much. See you tomorrow.